Join us on the program right now, Dr. John R. Lott, Jr., author of More Guns, Less Crime, also author of the new article, Medical Journal Bias on Guns. Dr. Lott, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for coming on the program tonight.
Oh, sure. Happy to do it.
So, we've seen in recent months the American Bar Association has come out and they passed a resolution in support of microstamping. And now we've got these medical journals that are starting to delve into gun control, including the New England Journal of Medicine. You say that over the past few months they've published a number of extremely biased and poorly done studies on gun control. What are they looking at, John?
Well, it's been a range of things. I think the McDonald Supreme Court decision with regard to the city of Chicago kind of set them off. So they've had several pieces that have focused on that. But they've had a range of other issues trying to push gun show background checks and a few other types of laws also. But it's, I think, part of the motivation and the timing surely seems a reaction to the Supreme Court case.
Okay, and this is not the first time that the sort of gun control as public health argument has been brought forth. In fact, the last time was in the late 80s, right?
Well, it's been pretty much continuous, but they kind of go in little waves. They had, when the Heller decision was made, they had a number of articles that came out then. But, over time, whether it's the Journal of the American Medical Association or the New England Journal of Medicine or some others, it's something that occurs fairly regularly.
Yeah. Now, you say in the same issue there was another piece by Julie Cantor. Were any of these people actually medical doctors, by the way, who wrote these articles?
Yes, some of them were.
Okay.
Cantor was both a lawyer and a doctor.
Okay.
And I know some of the other ones on the other article that I talked about were also.
Okay. Now, Julie Cantor says of the Heller decision, the decision striking down the District of Columbia's ban on handguns, quote, dire predictions have not yet been realized. And you point out that before the Heller decision came down, the New England Journal of Medicine was actually editorializing that if D.C.'s gun ban went away, if it was struck down as unconstitutional, the district would see a crime wave take place.
Right. No, I mean, she makes it sound as if, maybe murder rates and violent crime rates have stayed fairly similar, maybe gone up just a tiny bit. One would hardly know that D.C.'s murder rate fell by 29% last year. I mean, the ban being struck down by the Supreme Court was struck down in 2008. In 2009, murders fell by about 23%, which is phenomenal. It was 3 times more than the national drop in murder rates last year, and was about 3 times more than the drop in murder rates for cities over 500,000, which would include the District of Columbia. And they've continued falling this year. If you go through July this year, murder rates have fallen by about 36% from what they were when the Supreme Court made its decision.
Wow.
Which is huge. I mean, if the murder rates had gone up by 36% after the Heller decision, I'm sure people would be hearing something about in the news.
Of course.
The fact that they've fallen so much more dramatically than the rest of the country is not considered news.
Absolutely right. And John, you say at the end of your piece, eventually even the subscribers to the New England Journal of Medicine will learn about these facts. So just look at the changes in the climate debate. Not even the most prestigious places can get away with biased research for too long. But, I'm guessing most Americans aren't aware that the homicide rate dropped as precipitously as it did after the Heller decision. Most Americans probably aren't aware that the crime rate overall has fallen in the District of Columbia, although I have to say that we've talked with Christopher Bauman, the head of the Police Officers Union in D.C., and he's not convinced that the crime rate has dropped quite as low as the official reported figures would have it. How does this the truthful information get out there?
I mean, it's been a drop across the board. I mean, if you look at the first 7 months of 2008, you had about 107 murders. In the first 7 months of this year, you've had 69 murders. So, it's a pretty large number. If he thinks that something's wrong, that they're not counting all the murders, that would be very important. But it's hard for me to believe that all of a sudden the District of Columbia has decided to start biasing those numbers that are there. Maybe this huge, massive drop, not all of it's going to stay there, but it's something that's surely the people who were fighting the Heller or McDonald decisions were predicting the exact opposite, probably even a larger increase in the opposite direction. And it's something, as I've told your listeners before, in More Guns, Less Crime and other work that I've done, in the new third edition that came out this summer, I can't find a place around the world where we've had a gun ban and murder rates have gone down. Every place that I've looked at has seen murder rates go up by at least a little, and many times they've gone up by huge amounts. And it's not just murder rates in the District of Columbia. You had, you had robbery and other types of violent crime rates, and now when you've removed the ban, it's been pretty much across the board. And these are huge changes. It's, I would think that surely the police would notice that a lot.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that they're saying that crime has gone up. There's just, I think, a bit of a dispute over what the actual numbers are in the District of Columbia. Now, John, coming up this weekend, you are going to be appearing at the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Club's annual meeting, correct?
Right, I'll be there.
You're going to be the keynote speaker? You're going to have copies of More Guns, Less Crime available?
Yeah, I will. It should be fun. See Scott Bach and some of the other guys over there. I haven't talked to him for a little while, but it should be fun.
I was up there a few years ago. I wish I could make it up this weekend, but my wife's birthday is Thursday, and have to do the party thing. She gets upset if I miss that. But you'll have a great time, great audience, a lot of passionate gun owners and Second Amendment supporters in New Jersey. So I think you'll have a fantastic time. And thanks again for coming on the program tonight, sir. I really appreciate it.
Sure. I mean, we just touched a little bit on just one of the problems, but there are other major problems with even the couple pieces I talked about in my article.
Well, okay. Well, let's keep you on a little bit longer then. Let's talk about some of the other problems. What to you, John, is the biggest overall problem that you saw with these articles?
Well, I suppose one thing that just irritates me is just the use of facts in an academic journal that, one, they shouldn't be making these mistakes, but two, if they do, they should be willing to correct them. And I know the mistakes were pointed out to the New England Journal of Medicine, but they refused to publish any correction. Now, I'll give you one example, and that was they were claiming how successful background checks were in stopping criminals from getting guns. And the evidence that they pointed to was the fact that 1.5% of people who go through the background checks have their purchases denied. What they failed to mention, and I'm sure the authors who wrote this must understand, is that virtually all of those 1.5% are false positives. That only about the government itself is willing to argue that only about 2% of the 1.5%, so just a tiny fraction of 1%, are even possible to be real criminals that they're stopping, who have real criminal records from buying guns, and they only were willing to litigate, believed as be able to prosecute 0.2% of the 1.5%. I mean, it's just an incredibly small fraction. You're talking about something that's in the hundreds, a couple hundred cases in the last couple of years that they were even willing to prosecute, and they didn't even win all those. At least a third of those cases of this 0.2%. So this is 0.2% of 1.5%. They lost at least a third of those cases. And so you're talking about something that's literally about 100 cases a year that are left. And to go to say that has any significant impact on criminals being able to go and get guns because you've had these background checks, and they were making this argument for why we should have background checks at gun shows. This is a real cost.
Sure.
And my own research has found that when states have adopted rules on requiring checks for private transfers of guns, which is really what they're getting at when we're talking about the gun show regulations, you'll see about a 15% drop in the number of gun shows. You know, the people who are pushing these rules may not think that they're much of a cost, but you impose these types of costs, and you see fewer people being willing to go to the trouble to go and sell guns at gun shows.
Well, and I think you also hit the nail on the head when you said the real goal is not just to pass a law that says every gun sold or transferred at a gun show has to go through a background check. They want to end private sales of firearms. They want every sale of a firearm, whether it's at a gun show, whether it's at a retail store, whether it is a father selling it to his son. They want that to go through the NICS check system.
Right, and I think even that's just kind of the nose under the tent, camel's nose under the tent, because what happens then, they'll say, well, the only way we can really know whether we're monitoring all private transfers is if we know who owns all the guns. And so, then the next call, and they did try to call for this about a decade ago when they were pushing hard, when the Clinton administration and others were pushing hard for monitoring all private transfers, was they started talking about registration being needed. Now, that's kind of been off the table because they know how politically unpopular it is, but I guarantee you if they got that nationally, eventually that would be the next step that they would be pushing for.
I am sure that you're right. In fact, I think it was last week on the program we were talking about Brady 2, the bill that the Brady campaign wanted to get after the Clinton gun ban, after the original Brady bill, and all of the provisions in there. And it's kind of interesting, John, to look and see they're still pushing a lot of these items, but they're now pushing them as standalone. They're pushing them in particular states where they think that they can get these things passed. They don't dream of trying to get a sweeping omnibus gun control bill like that through Congress right now.
No, but it's something that they're still thinking about.
Absolutely.
And, they still have this goal to try to make gun ownership as costly as they can so they can reduce the number of people who own guns.
Yeah, which is why I think 2009 probably a very depressing year for the gun control advocates with so many new Americans purchasing firearms. Hopefully the trend is continuing this year as well. John, unfortunately we are out of time, but you're going to be speaking again at the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs annual meeting coming up this Saturday. anjrpc.org is the website. There may still be a couple of tickets left. And, John, thanks again for coming on the show. We'll do it again soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Dr. John Lott, author of More Guns, Less Crime, just out in a third edition, by the way, with something like 200 new pages worth of material. It really is almost a whole new book. There is a whole new section of updated research going over 10 more years, because it's been a decade since the second edition of More Guns, Less Crime came out. It is a book that, frankly, every gun owner, especially every gun owner who talks about being a gun owner, who talks about gun control, even non-gun owners who don't like dumb laws, More Guns, Less Crime, a fantastic read.